Well, hi-de-ho, neighbors. It's episode 43 of the Stratosphere Lounge, coming to you live from the spectacular Stratosphere Lounge building orbiting high above the Earth in not geosynchronous orbit. We like to stay at the top of the atmosphere. It's a little cooler. Just the view's a little neater. Good to see everybody. Can't really see you, but, figure of speech, and we'll go with that. It's great to be here, and as usual, another fun evening. And ay caramba, have I been a busy boy. We opened the website since we were here last, so that's, needless to say, been a big deal. And again, one of the great lessons of life that I never seem to learn is that everything always takes longer than you think it will, and I'm notoriously criminally bad about this. So when we opened the doors, we had a couple things we weren't quite finished with. There's still a couple things we're not quite finished with. So we basically tried to keep it open for our Facebook friends, and starting, I think probably on Thursday, probably tomorrow, certainly on Saturday, we're going to start promoting things wide, starting with the virtual presidency thing, the Your Government thing, which I'm very, very proud of. And then keeping the thing updated is great. I still don't actually have direct access to my own website. We're still building some of the back-end stuff. Now, just so I get this clear, that's not a failure of our website guy at all. It's a failure really on my part. We had to pare away a lot of things we wanted to have in there because we'd never opened the doors. And then we got to the place where once we did get the doors open, we still have a couple little things to finish. So we're just wrapping up the store now. And we're... just move this. We're getting there. Starting Friday, I'll be able to do my own updates on the site, which will help the updates get in there a little bit faster. Right now I have to hand them off to our web guy because we're just adding some more things that I handed to him to do at the last minute. But everything is really feeling great. I love it. I love the way it looks. I've been, real happy with the subscriptions. For those of you who subscribe, thank you very much. I know this is kind of the core crowd, and I'm very, very grateful. And we have a bunch of backed up TSLs to take care of. So just very, very quick, let me just tell you some of the things we're just trying to get working in terms of getting caught up on. Store is almost finished. We've got, I'm going to be doing a new commentary for tomorrow. I'm going to try and do those every day. If not every day, there will be at least 2 updates a day for the website. That's a promise. Whether they'll all be commentaries every day, I'm not sure, but there will be 2 updates a day on this website. So that's good. One of the things that I'm just going to be give you a quick little heads up on, that's not in the what you get video, and then we'll get on with the show, is 2 things we're going to do very, very quickly. And by quickly, I mean hopefully starting early part of next week. We're going to bring a new channel line on called the Singularity. And what that's going to be is Singularity is going to be a place for me to post things that I didn't do. That'll be links to other sites, things that I like, and hopefully a lot of videos, just weird things that attract my attention. Sometimes I see amazing graphic things. Sometimes I see amazing astronomy things. Sometimes I see dance things that I find interesting. So the Singularity will be a place just to go back once or twice a day, and you'll see some new things there. We'll keep those coming, so we'll get that updated. And then more good news is starting next week, I hope as well, hopefully middle of next week, depends on how difficult it is. We're going to move our old friend into our new home, and we're going to have a channel button where you can go to eject, and you'll be able to see all of the original Silent America essays. You'll be able to see everything we did in the first, I guess it's probably 5-6 years. Every single thing. We went through a period in 2005 where we had a project called Ejectia, which didn't succeed but was really fascinating and cool. So 2 channels coming up right away. One of them, as I said, Singularity, which will be for just quirky stuff that I like and link to. And then after that, we'll bring back Eject archives once we move that to our new host, new server. So for those of you who don't know what Eject was, you'll get a chance. And for those of you who did, you get a chance to go back home. Looks exactly the same when we last closed the doors. It's kind of nostalgic and cool. So that's what's coming up pretty much directly. I have kind of a hard out tonight at about 7:30 would be about the latest. So I'm going to get to these questions and start plowing through them. And then we'll see. And some of these, I always anticipate these questions, and I'll just get to them when I get to them, I guess. So for TSL 43 episodes. That's absolutely amazing. Last thing I'll say is, you know what, come to think of it, I think that's a question, so I'll get to that later. Here we go. Jen Reinheimer says, burned out on politics, debt limit, shutdown, and government in general, in need of some encouragement that there's some hope for change in the next 3 years. Well, I'm in the hope business, Jim, and I am actually hopeful. I'm not hopeful in like a up with people kind of hopeful way, but I am hopeful. And the only reason I'm really hopeful in the midst of all of this goat rodeo is very simple. It's very simple, really. We have a philosophy that works, and our opponents have a philosophy that doesn't work. So all of this failure on the part of the Republican leadership, and all of this song and dance, and all of this play acting, and all of this updating, the debt clock, and going, all of this stuff that John Boehner does, ultimately would be enough to put a person into an early grave and just make you just want to go, suck on a exhaust pipe. But ultimately, while this is going on, and while the stupid party is committing its weekly circular firing squad, the bottom line is that the other team, Team Blue, that seems to know how to do everything right politically and in terms of messaging, has to confront the fact that everything they believe in is wrong and doesn't work. They cannot succeed. Reality is on our side. Reality will defeat them. And if we just stop defeating ourselves, we'll be there. If the Democrats ran unopposed, they'd lose every time. Oh my gosh, I think that Doug Sexum just commented on Ejecti. I know this is off the topic, but every now and then I see a name. I wonder if that's our very, very special friend Doug from back in the day. Sorry about that. That's part of the charm of the show, I hope. Anyway, this Obamacare failure, I'll give you a little cheat of what tomorrow's commentary is going to be. We are going to see in the opening of the Obamacare website debacle, this is what Obamacare is. This is not a fluke. This is what happens when you put 300 million eggs in one basket and you hand the basket off to a bunch of criminals and incompetents. What do you expect would happen? So while we're suffering all of these kabuki losses, and they hurt, the American people are facing the kind of stuff that punches through politics, because most Americans don't really pay attention to this. A lot of us are the high information guys, and we're in this fight and looking at all the details. But here's what people do know. They know that all of a sudden their insurance premiums have doubled or tripled. They know that they can't get onto the Obamacare website, and they know that, and they're going to start finding out that employers are going to say, you know what, we'll just pay the $1,500 per person. Much cheaper for us to do that. Knock yourselves out. You don't have health insurance anymore. We don't have what? Who now? You don't have health insurance anymore. Why not? Because you voted for Obamacare. So go to the exchanges and knock yourself out, guys. And that's how we have going. That is how we have to win. We have to let these people fail. I don't understand this part of this equation at all. I mean, if it turns out that Obamacare succeeds, then we shouldn't be opposing Obamacare. The reason, now I understand the distinction. People think once it's in place, it's a nightmare and it never goes away. But I say, why not, if it's a nightmare, why not get the American people's hands dirty with the nightmare that they voted for and let them realize what's happening? Let President, if you want to keep your plan, you can explain why everybody's rates are tripling and why they can't get insurance anymore. This is how you have to deal with these people when you're fighting the kind of headwind we're fighting with this this media, so-called media. You certainly can't refer to it as a press, with the Democratic, with the audiovisual wing of the Democratic Party. You have no alternative but to let reality do your talking for you. And we should, I think, have just said in very clear opposition, we are dreadfully opposed to this, but here it is. And who else do you blame for Obamacare's failure but Obama? Now, if the Republicans start getting in the way and doing what we're doing, then the Democrats say, oh, they stopped the implementation and that's why the website failed. No, damn it, Boehner. Can somebody not tell this story? Can somebody not tell the story about how this website came about. As a matter of fact, if you'll excuse me for 1 second, I'm going to send a super fast iMessage because I'm going to need this later. If you understand how this website debacle happened, I mean, they budgeted, the guy who did our website, for example, is a genius. He's a super, super terrific guy. He built this new website, sorry. He builds websites. That's what he does. And he's very good at it. He's just a guy. And I think the Obamacare website was budgeted $95 million. $95 million for one website. And it crashed. They had two companies working on it, apparently. And by the way, $95 million was what it was budgeted. The actual cost, I think, was $650 million. I'm sourcing this stuff right now. So with this said, let's just consider this hearsay and speculation on my part until I have the sourcing. So almost $1 billion, $500 million on a website, and it crashes. And they knew it was going to crash in advance, 3 months in advance. Apparently, I'm hearing all these stories secondhand. They went to Obama and said the website's not going to take it. It's not going to work. And Obama said, well, we can't give this victory to the Republicans and make it work. Well, they went in there to make it work, and it didn't work. So here's my point, Jim. This is my point. The point is that this website failure of Obamacare is not a technological failure. It is. It's a gigantic one. It's one of the biggest tech failures in history, but that's not what the problem is. The problem is you have a single point of failure. Now, everybody's health, the care for people's physical bodies comes down to one incompetent president, one incompetent set of grifters, forget even the execution. The government executed it, so it failed. But even if it had been executed by Disney or somebody who knows what they're doing, then I'm sorry. This is the point, right? The point is you now have everybody in the country in one basket. You no longer have states with hundreds of insurance companies competing for each other. So if I want to buy healthcare insurance, I can go to 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 or 20 professional websites run by professional companies. And if one of them fails, I go to another one, right? But no, we're going to do everything. We're going to do everything at the DMV. And so what do you say about this? So my friend Brian, who does these, who does our website, has done a magnificent job of it, and everything that is not ready on launch date is due entirely to me and overloading the basket and getting all wrapped up with other things that we try to get into the last minute. But Brian could have built that website, and Brian probably could have done it for $100,000, and he built Truth Revolt. Have you seen this new website? It's gotten 4 drudge links in 5 days. It's the thing that Jeremy Boring is working on with the editor of the site, Ben Shapiro. It's basically Media Matters for the good guys. So here's Brian, who's a competent, not only competent, extraordinarily competent, extremely capable, competent web developer. They send it to this site. The website, for a slight additional charge, scans every single line of code looking for failure modes. The thing scales on the fly. If it gets more traffic, it gets more resources. If it gets fewer, it gets less. 100,000, 200,000, I don't know. Let's say it was $1 million. They charged $95 million for the Obamacare site. They ended up paying $650 million, and it utterly crashed. It's not crashing because it was a badly designed website, although it was. It's not crashing because of government incompetence, although it was. It's crashing because you can't expect 300 million people to go through one bottleneck and have this thing work. And my entire point here is that this is not a fluky beginning to a smooth running process. This is the kind of disaster that people are going to experience every single day. This is what happens when you centralize things. God, they're stupid, these people. So, Jim, the hope is not that we're going to get competent leadership from the Republicans. Don't you worry about that. We will continue to find the most absolutely inert, inept, incompetent people. I think John Boehner seems like a nice guy. I say this all the time. I'm getting a little tired of saying he's a nice guy. So what if he's a nice guy? If he's a nice guy, run for soccer coach. Why don't we have somebody who can tell a story here? Why don't we have somebody who can speak in complete sentences? Why don't we? The Republican National chairman should be Rush Limbaugh. Right? And the Speaker of the House should be Ted Cruz. Boom. That's it. That's it. That's simple. But we're not going to see that. So the only thing we've got going for us, Jim, is the only thing we have in our quiver. The only arrow we have left is the biggest arrow of them all, and it's a 700-foot long arrow, and it's launched by 7,000 foot-pounds of torque, and it's the arrow of reality, and they are running against reality, and they can't win. Their economics won't win. Their policies won't win. We have to let it fail. And during the whole time that it fails, we have to be standing there saying, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. We've been saying this. Maybe you people want to listen. But this failure of the Obamacare website is so epic, even the liberals are embarrassed by it. And Robert Gibbs gets out on TV and says this is an excruciating embarrassment for the administration. And as my friend Scott Up pointed out on Trifecta, why couldn't the current press secretary come out and say that? That'd be honesty. That would be accepting responsibility. And if they did that, they'd get some points back. But they can't say they made a mistake because President Godling can't have any errors on his record. He's never failed before. He's never going to fail again. Do you realize how easy it is to beat somebody who is that insecure? Somebody who's so insecure they can't say they made a mistake? Parenthetically, conversationally, in the first 20 minutes of this show today, I've told you about 5 or 6 or 7 mistakes that I personally made on something much simpler than this. I'm not afraid to say I make a mistake. I make mistakes all the time. I try to learn from their mistakes and try not to do them again. And one of the reasons why some of these things are not online right now is because as we're recording the show, our magnificent web guy, Brian, is working on fixing a mistake that I had on the back end on the membership side. So we make mistakes and we fix them, and they're done the next day. Here's a mistake. How long to fix it? 24 hours. Go. Okay. So as far as the Obamacare thing goes, guys, it's something like the traffic has fallen off 80%, and the people who were trying to get on Obamacare have tried, many cases, tried 40 times to register and log in. People don't go back after that kind of failure. They don't. So this is good, and everything else is going to follow. It's going to fail. It's going to go down. Let it fail. Let it have their name on it. I tried to stop this debacle. I wanted Mitt Romney to be president, but he isn't. So since he isn't, why don't we just let them own this train wreck? Since we can't prevent the train wreck, since we sat there waving our lantern and no one listened to us, then we should say, well, okay. And we should not be afraid to say, we told you so. Do it in an upright, manly, positive way. Do it with a sense of humor. Just sit on the sidelines and go, there are people that run blogs that are more capable than this. Should we reach into, forget reaching into the RNC checkbook. How about if I personally, Mr. Obama, as Speaker of the House, me personally, I don't have this kind of money to throw in, but what the heck, I can make a phone call. How about if I call a couple of my friends and we scratch up $100,000 and we'll make a competing website and we'll see if it works any better than yours, and if it does, then we'll put it up there and it'll link to private insurance companies. How about that? Centralization is for idiots. And centralization appeals to people who want authority. Centralization appeals to the genetically defective control freaks that have been trying to run humanity forever. This is the first time in history that people have tried to run things on their own. And if you let people run things on their own, everything works great. But no, not these narcissists, not these power freaks. They cannot bear it. And when I say these narcissists and power freaks, I'm not just talking about Barack Obama and Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi, although I am talking about them. I'm also talking about Mitch McConnell and John Boehner and Bryce Rebus. They want to be in Washington. And if they're in Washington in opposition, that's better than being home in victory to these people. And that's why the problem is not the Democrats. The problem is the Beltway. And of all the things I've said, I don't know if I've said this on the show, but I've said it a couple times in events. Every time I go to Washington now, I realize the catastrophe, the moral catastrophe of naming that town after George Washington. The capital of the United States should be called Arnoldsville. Arnoldsville. How is it that a man who walked away from power, one of the most moral men who ever lived, one of the most honest, moral, upstanding, decent, magnificent, brave, competent men in history, has this town named after him and has to suffer this indignity on a daily basis? Beyond me. Moving on. Mark Dudridge says a 3-parter. He apologizes in advance to all of you out there who are going to have to endure me listening to this whole thing. Do you think America will ever collapse? If not, why not? If so, is there an inevitability to us libertarians and conservatives can only delay? Is there and I'm sorry, if so, and it is an inevitability that us libertarians, I think you meant to say we libertarians, Mark, please don't cancel your subscriptions based on my grammar Nazism, that we libertarians and conservatives can only delay, should we just let it collapse sooner rather than later and then be strong and proactive in raising the phoenix? Yes, I think so. I think, look, everything comes down to the press, okay? If there was a press, America would vote like Kansas. But there isn't a press, and you cannot have a democracy or even a republic when people are told a series of lies and not told the truth about one side, and the other side is lying all the time. I'm not saying our side doesn't lie. I'm saying if all the news people get is that Democrats are awesome and Republicans suck, then you've got a real problem. That's a real problem. So let's take them one at a time. Do I think America will ever collapse? I don't know. Every civilization in history collapses. So needless to say, these signs are not good. If not, why not? If not, why not is because we are unique in history for a number of reasons. And the most important reason that we're unique in history is that we are founded on an idea. And that idea is eternal. That idea not only is never going to die, that idea has never died. That idea has been with us from the beginning. This is the first time in the history of the world that a country was founded on the idea of freedom. People have wanted to be free since there have been people. And even if tyranny comes and 1984 comes to pass and the future of humanity is a boot stepping on a face for 1,000 years, they're always going to want to be free. And every time people think about being free, there will be some piece of America alive. So the question is, does America exist in the future as anything other than an idea? And I think the answer is yes. And I think the answer is it has worked so magnificently until these progressives got a hold of it. And it is still within living memory of everybody who votes today that this country was free and prosperous. Even the 20-year-olds can remember something like that. But we have got to absolutely let these people... When they vote for socialism and we give them capitalism light, they blame it on capitalism. They voted for socialism. Let them have their socialism. Make it sting. Let me rephrase that. Don't make it sting. Allow it to sting. It stings on its own. You don't have to make it sting. They want socialized medicine? Have it. The president said if you want to keep your provider, you can keep your provider. Let's hold him to his word. Let Americans go on Obamacare and let the rest of us stay with our private providers. And then if it turns out that we can't keep our private providers, then 100 million of us need to rise up, or 1 million of us need to march on Washington with one sign that said, you said we could keep our providers, but we can't. Are you a liar or are you an idiot? You've got to let these things, you've got to let people have the consequences of their actions. What we're doing right now is we are in a codependent relationship with Barack Obama. Not just the American people, but all of us. We are but the Republicans as well. We're in a codependent relationship with him. He's an addict. He's spending more money than he has, and he's behaving like an irresponsible child, and he's stealing money from under the cushions, and he's stealing money from our kids, and he's going out and spending it on himself. And instead of us basically saying, well, we love you, dear, but you're going to have to go to jail now because, your room is full of drug paraphernalia and you stole our coin collection. Then what we do is we say, no, we can't really call the police. He's really no. And what we do is we prevent them from feeling the consequences of their actions, and so they continue and they accelerate. And that's our problem. So look, I don't know if a collapse is coming. Nobody knows what it would look like. No one wants to see one. I don't want to see one. I'll tell you one thing, if the social structure of this country breaks down, the cities are going to be not a good place to be. That's why I have an airplane and an AR-15 and a 45. I don't have to fight my way out of LA. I just have to fight my way to the airport. And it's not too far from me. So, no one knows. No one wants to see that. But is it going to take that? I don't know. What does America look like in the future? I don't know. I know one thing. It doesn't look like what it looks like today. This structure is falling. And I've said at a couple of fundraisers, what we are experiencing right now is we are experiencing the unusual sensation of being on the Titanic on the clearest, bright, sunny afternoon in the history of the world and having a look up in the crow's nest saying, iceberg right ahead. How far is that iceberg? She's on the horizon, sir. We estimate 35 miles. Full speed ahead. rudder amidships. And we continue to steam towards an iceberg that we can see on the horizon until it's 40 miles away, and then it's 20 miles away, and it's 10 miles away, then it's 5 miles away, then it's half a mile, and then we, right at the last second, start to turn off to the side, and it scrapes the side of the ship, and down she goes. That's what's happening right now. Half of us can see it, and half of us can't. And if we can't stop it, then the sooner it happens, the better. Because the sooner that happens, two things. The sooner it happens, the more people who are alive who remember what this country was before it became this utopian socialist paradise are still with us, and their skill set is still with us. And the sooner it happens, the sooner we can get out of it. The sooner the bottom comes, the less deep the bottom will be. The longer we wait till we hit bottom, the deeper the bottom will be. You can ask any other addict about how that works. They'll tell you. I still believe this country's going to be here. I don't believe you can kill the initiative and the kindness and the drive and the ambition of 100 million Americans. We may be a third of the country, but 100 million Americans is more people than there are really. It's more than there are in Europe, more than there are in France. 100 million Americans is a gigantic, gigantic well of good. And if they let us have one state, I'd move there. If they gave us one state as a free state, I'd move, and half the country'd move. That place would be paradise. Yeah, we have nuclear power. What are your water What do you mean? What are our water requirements? Well, what do you use for water? Well, we use seawater, of course. Why wouldn't we use seawater? What do you mean use seawater? We use our thorium reactors to pump in large amounts of seawaters. We put them through a desalinization program, and we have all the water we want. What do you do about your cars? Well, we use electric cars. We also use gasoline cars. We use clean natural gas cars. We use oil. We use the oil underneath our feet. And we have electric cars that don't run on coal like your electric cars do in the East. Your electric car, your Nissan Leaf or your Prius, you plug into a wall, and the wall generates the electricity, and you're driving a clean car, but the electricity is generated from coal, so you're driving a coal-powered car. Now, our cars are powered by nuclear power. Aren't you worried about meltdowns? No. Why aren't you worried about meltdowns? Because thorium reactors can't melt down. It's physics, dude. It's not engineering. It's physics. It can't happen. Any other questions? Because we got a lot of work to do. We got some wealth to generate. If I could find a place like that in the world, I'd move. Everybody else would move. Then you get an interesting question, and that interesting question is, what is America? Is America geography? Is America a race? No. America's an idea. It's the idea of limited government. It's the idea of individual responsibility. It's the idea of the individual. So America could really go anywhere. I'd like it to go to space, frankly, but space is hard. If I could do anything right now, if I could get a state, I would take Alaska. And if I couldn't get a state, I'd take Antarctica. Because I'd rather be cold than hot. I've grown up in heat, and I don't much like the heat. I don't like... Bless Texas. Bless them. Bless them. Bless Texas till the sun goes down. But you can't defend Texas. If the rest of the country collapses, you can't defend Texas. There's no way to seal the borders of Texas against other Americans, number one. And number two, the one thing we're finding, of all the things that depress me, because like I say, I still have hope. I'll always have hope. But the one thing that depresses me the most about Texas is California, let's say, has these ruinous economic policies. And so corporations leave California and they go to Texas and they take their employees with them. And you know what happens? These Californians in Texas start voting like Californians again. And Texas gets bluer and bluer and bluer and bluer and bluer. And I had a chance to speak at an event where Rick Perry was. And I said, Governor, if I were you, I would take whatever barbed wire and concrete and whatever other resources you have to build that border fence with Mexico, and I would deploy them in a much, much more critical cause. I would build a gigantic electrified fence around the city of Austin, and I wouldn't let anyone out, and I wouldn't let any ideas out either. And if you happen to see some cars that are coming down the freeway, coming in I-10, and they have California license plates, and if those cars go anywhere other than a rest stop or a motel, I would open fire on them immediately. I wouldn't leave it up to the highway patrol. I would use the National Guard. I'd use the Texas Air National Guard. Use Air Force if you have to. You see a California car, get off the freeway like it's looking for real estate. Open fire. Don't take chances. Don't take chances. Shoot first. Ask questions later. Anyway, yeah, I could live in Antarctica. There's air. The air in Antarctica is not only as good as it is here, it's probably the cleanest air in the world. It's very dry. It's very cold. Hardest part about dealing with Antarctica is the darkness, and then the sunlight. But if you were talking about putting humans in space, you're talking about something that is orders and orders of magnitude harder than that. And at least in Antarctica, you can go outside and take a walk. You're not going to be able to do that anywhere for a long time, maybe forever. And the final thing I'll say about Antarctica is not for the weak. And we have a question about this coming up, I think. So moving on. Isaac Tiemans says, have you seen Gravity yet? I thought it was a magnificent tribute to the strength of the human spirit. Highly recommended despite George Clooney. And then Dan Ramsey said, good evening, Mr. Virtual President. Good evening. I saw Gravity and thought it had a laughable plot with equally laughable laws of physics and orbital mechanics. Took me right out of the movie. Have you seen it? And if so, do you agree, or are you going to go all Star Trek Into Darkness on us and scream, Khan? I did see him. I saw it last night. I wanted to see it earlier, and I hadn't had a chance. Saw it last night in 3D. Here's my review of Gravity. I was 30 seconds into the movie, and I already said, this is one of the most visually spectacular, striking things I've ever seen in my life, and 30 seconds into the movie, I knew I was going to hate it. That was the worst dialogue I have ever heard, ever. And to see this caricature of astronauts, there's so much to say about the movie, and I guess it's hard to talk about without spoilers, so I guess I won't really talk about it. But George Clooney is jet setting around in a jetpack, in a maneuvering unit, man maneuvering unit, and he's just goofing off, flying around because astronauts have nothing else to do in space except just circle around while somebody's doing the work. And so there's that, and then there's another guy who is presumably a professional astronaut with a lifetime of training, who is down in the cargo bay of the shuttle, and just for fun, decides to jump as high as he can just so he can be pulled by his tether. Whee! Doink! Ha 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 ha! Yeah, that happens all the time up there. And the person, of course, the lead character, Sandra Bullock, is repairing... I'm sorry, this is a spoiler, but you're going to have to eat it. Sandra Bullock is the lead character. She's an astronaut. She's a highly trained mission specialist. She's repairing the Hubble Space Telescope at the time of the incident. And we find out that she's a doctor and that she's worked 18 hours a day for years and years in the hospital. And then after the movie's over, I thought, well, actually, Jeremy Boring thought, because I wasn't smart enough to pick it up, you lower your suspension of disbelief in the theater. They thought, why would a regular surgeon, presumably, be repairing the Hubble Space Telescope? Oh, she also flies the reentry vehicles and can fly the shuttle and fly everything. She can figure out all these calculations and leap from one spacecraft to another and time it just perfectly and do all these orbital rendezvous, which are real easy. Somebody here in the comment section said, apparently I think so, said that Buzz Aldrin loved it. Buzz Aldrin may have loved it because it was the closest thing to being in space that you will experience. Visually, it is spectacular. It's not perfect, but it's very good. And so you've got, once again, you've got this incredible technology. You've got this incredible creative vision on the part of the special effects guys and the directing. I mean, the first 17, 18 minutes of the movie is one shot. It's one shot. There's no cuts in the first 18 minutes. It's spectacular. Spectacular. But it's not just plot holes. It's just plain silly. And even if you take the silliness out of it, with all the physics and all the leaping and jumping, even if you take that away, I didn't care about these people. I didn't care about them. George Clooney was being so charming, I thought, oh, look, George Clooney being charming. Sandra Bullock is a nothing burger. She's got no appeal. They give her this enforced kind of, here's the key to this character. Lazy. I thought it was lazy, and I thought it was not a story. What was that about? Who changes in this story? The story's supposed to have an arc. Now, with all this said, because I know some of you thinking I'm dumping on this movie, on some level, Aurora, up until very, very recently, was a competent version of Gravity. I wanted to do, and my version of what it would look like would actually be slightly more realistic. You wouldn't see the stars in Earth orbit. And the lighting would be different, although Gravity was excellent in that regard. Really looked pretty darn good. And the special effects, I say, is just stunning. But up until recently, about 4 or 5 months ago, when I read this book called Story, a screenwriting book called Story, and I've talked about it on the show before, Up until then, I made it about the mission. I made it about the mission and the ship. Funny thing about this, somebody pointed this out to me as another book I read, I guess, about screenplay. But they say that your movie is always named after your main character, your main interest. The title of your movie is what the movie's about. I know that sounds obvious, but it's not really. And so I had all these characters and I had all this arc and I had a plot and I had everything. I had all this dynamics. I could have called it Mission to Jupiter. I could have called it any number of things, but I called it Aurora because when I first wrote it, it was about the ship. The ship interested me. And we're going to start getting updates for Aurora on the BillWhittle.com website starting probably Friday or Saturday at the latest. Once I have my access back, I can start dropping pictures in. Because I'm going to show you how that ship evolved. It's about the ship to me. When I wrote it, it was 2005. That's almost 10 years ago. It's 8 years ago. And I wrote it about the ship because the idea of going appealed to me. And this was back before Obama, and this is back, back when the country still felt like it was a country. And I was more interested in the idea that we could go now, that we have the equipment to go now. We have the technology to go. We've had it for 25, 30 years, probably had it for 40 or 50 years. So somebody was saying they're really rooting for Bullock to die in the movie. I'm with you, Tom Dunnington. I was kind of rooting for her to die, too. I just didn't like her. I just like, you know what? No, I hope you don't make it. That's not a good sign for a movie of any kind. But I was real into the tech of it. I was into the how. I was into the how would we get there? What kind of technology would we use? What would the rockets do? How does the ship work? And you're going to hear how the ship works in these updates on Aurora on BillWhittle.com. And then I got more into the people and the characters and the relationships and all that other stuff. And then that kind of sat against the plot. But it was never a story in the sense of a classical story. It was never a story that would have been successful. And then I read this story screenplay. And I realized that there are hundreds of movies that are forgettable. 2010 was an interesting kind of movie. I hated the art direction, but it was interesting. But you don't go see 2010 5 times over. But you go and see Star Wars, the original Star Wars, 5 times over. And I don't like Star Wars compared to Trek and other things. So what makes the Wrath of Khan, the original Wrath of Khan, the only original series movie that was worth seeing, in my opinion? There were other ones that were okay, but Wrath of Khan is unbelievable. Wrath of Khan is great because, number one, you do have good special effects, but Wrath of Khan is a classic story. Kirk goes from being an arrogant, pompous guy who's feeling old. He meets an adversary worthy of him, somebody who's better than him. And he has to make choices and sacrifice and lose things. And at the end of the movie, Kirk is a different person than he was at the beginning of a movie. That's called a character arc. And if you don't have a character arc, you don't have an interesting story. Bullock doesn't change in this movie. Oh, I gained my confidence. Okay, you didn't have confidence before. You're an astronaut. Didn't buy it. But when I do the final rewrite of Aurora, it is going to be about a farm boy who becomes a king. Now you've got a story. When people say to me, what is Aurora about? I used to say it's about how we could get to Jupiter. And then it was about a mission to Jupiter and all the interesting things that happen. But now Aurora is about a farm boy that becomes a king. Because people like stories about farm boys that become kings. Star Wars is about a farm boy who becomes a king. Lord of the Rings is about a farm boy who becomes a king. Arthur, Camelot is a story about a farm boy who becomes a king, and you can find scores of them. The idea that you have royalty inside you and that through stress and strain and against incredible odds, as the outsider, you can become the king, speaks to all of us because we all feel that we have something inside us that's unique, something untapped. We all want to believe, whether it's true or not. I believe it is true for everybody. We all believe that inside us is greatness that's just waiting to be called, waiting for the call, and waiting for the adventure, and waiting for the stress, and waiting for the pain, and waiting for the fear to refine it out of us. And so there's that dark moment, and then there's the triumph, and that's an arc. I didn't see that in Gravity. I didn't see anything like it. So once again, it's a giant, magnificent special effects. It's a technological test reel. We'll get into all of this stuff. Somebody said, can we cast a few Strato Loungers in Aurora? We can. And one of the things we're going to do with memberships is we're going to have opportunities for subscribers to be on the movies, and we'll get into all of that later. Before Aurora, by the way, we're going to do another movie which I'm very, very, very excited about called Big Bat Problems. And I'm excited about that because it's where my head is right now. And it's really fun, and it's really quirky, and it's basically Buckaroo Banzai goes hunting for aliens. That's pretty much it. Let's move on because we got about another 45 minutes. Going to be out on time today. Gloria Gibson von... Oh, excuse me. I should have given this a little more work before I went to it. I'm going to go with Gloria Gibson von Fonestock. And if that's not correct, please forgive me. Says, I think you should have people like questions and you answer the ones with the most likes on the Facebook page. It's funny because I was thinking that thought as I was scrolling down the comments today. Because now Facebook lists comments by number of likes. I think that's it. I'm in. I'm game. I think what we'll do in the future, and we'll announce it in the future, is that from now on, list whatever comments you want to list, whatever questions you want to list, and we'll take the ones with the most likes in order. Seems like a cool way to go. We'll try it anyway. If it turns out it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And maybe I should have three. Maybe I'll have a couple of freebies. I get like three freebies. This no one liked this one. I don't care. I do. So that's a great idea, Gloria. We'll try it again. And then she comes back with another question. And I took this one because every time I read this, I always feel guilty, and sooner or later it will sink in. I've asked this every week. No one responds, so I keep asking. Well, now we're responding. We want satisfied customers out there, Gloria. How do we get rid of Robe and Priebus? Well, you don't. You don't get rid of Robe and Priebus. They're the insiders. You can't. The RNC is not something that you can. You don't have no control over the RNC. You can stop sending them money, and I would. I'd stop sending Robe money, and I'd stop sending Priebus money. Don't send them money. Then start asking who you can send money to. These guys are on their way out. This whole thing is going, and I don't think we can influence them. I don't think we should try to influence them. I think what we should be doing is looking for alternatives. And I think, again, we're talking about the internet and stuff, and how some of this stuff can save America. Why don't we put together a virtual movement? Why don't we? Just about everybody in this country has an internet connection. This is kind of what I want to do. It's what I want to do with the virtual presidency. People keep asking me if I would run for office, and it's like, if I run for office, let me just say one thing about running for office, okay? It has occurred to me watching the Republicans for the last 6 months, who have been so awful. And Ted Cruz, who I like, I've seen at a bunch of events, is a senator. But it occurred to me that if I were to run for a seat as a representative somewhere, I would be the most articulate member of the House of Representatives, and I could get some real national exposure, not for me, but for the ideas. So it's possible that I might think about doing that for 2 years if things continue to go badly. I got other things that I think I'd rather. I think the virtual presidency can actually be somebody who speaks for all of these candidates. It goes out there and goes for these to their fundraisers and goes to their rallies and stuff and deploy whatever eloquence and understanding of our principles that I have to people. But believe me when I tell you this one thing, Gloria, there are politicians out there who are starting to get it. Younger politicians, Ted Cruz and some other Tea Party guys, understand that it's not just about the principles. You got to know how to sell the principles. It's about the dress, how you dress. It's about your haircut. It's about your language. It's about your clothing. And they want us to come to Washington and brief them. They want us to. They want us to play. What's the word? Like devil's advocate. They want us to coach them. How do we talk about abortion? How do we talk about gay marriage? How do we talk about all this other stuff? David Horowitz has been trying to do this. David Horowitz is a genius at this because David Horowitz played for Team Blue for the first half of his life. David Horowitz, one of the brightest men on the planet. And David Horowitz understands a message, and David Horowitz, bless his heart, I say this as a friend of his, thinks like a subversive. He knows how to do this. And so we're not going to get a whole army, Gloria. We're not going to gain control of the army. We're going to have to be special forces, and we're going to have to go in there and do things under the radar and parachute and blow up ammo dumps and send guys in on frogmen and take out this installation. That's basically what we're going to have to do. So that's what we're going to do. Moving on. Brian Moore says, let's see. Hey, Bill, there are a number of your speaking appearances floating around YouTube. Is there an email or something where we can link them to you so you can get them up and on the site? I really liked your assault on civilization structures up in Toronto and hasn't got the viewing it deserves. This is one of the many little things that we had to delay just so we could get the doors open. In this giant onrush, as any of you who've ever launched a big project know, this thing kind of becomes a funnel. You end up, for the first 3 months, you work till 10 o'clock at night for the first 3 months, and then with 2 months left, you work till midnight. Then with 1 month left, you work till 2 a.m., and then in the final 4 or 5 days, you don't sleep. So one of the things that we had to rush just to get it finished was the speaking page on BillWhittle.com. I think we have 2 speeches up there. We're going to look for all of them. So the answer is, if you could email it to, I think Bill at BillWhittle.com will do it. If you can send us the links, that would be great. And then we're going to put them up there. And so the speaking page will be an archive of all the speeches in the way that the firewall page is an archive of every single firewall. One of the other things we have to do is we have to go build down all the afterburners so that all the existing afterburners that are on YouTube are in place. So we're going to start redoing those. That goes to Stratosphere Lounge as well. I think we've got like 4 or 5 episodes that I haven't uploaded to YouTube yet because I've been so busy. So we're going to start bringing those online. And we'll try and get them set up so that we have timestamps on them. We may go back and retroactively do it. We'll certainly start doing it in the future so that, in the comment section below there, it'll say, this question plus that happens at, 9:14. And then actually we may do a little mini contest or something and find some great moments. I think it was last week's episode or 2 weeks before I had an epic half-hour rant at the beginning. It was really great. And we might actually shorten those out and send those out as a specific YouTube thing. But we're going to be getting on all of this, Brian, and I'm so excited because today was really the first day of the post-opening. Tuesday's my PJTV day. So today was the first day when I'm like, okay, we got things that we can do. I still don't have access to update the site yet. I know that sounds odd, but I think by Monday we will be in maintenance mode. So we're getting there. But it will be on speaking. To answer your question, Brian, it will be on the speaking page at BillWhittle.com. There should be everything that I've done that we can find. And anytime I do a new speaking gig, it'll be posted there. So, and a schedule of upcoming events and how you can reach me if you want me to come to one of your events as well. We're going to get on top of all this. We have a couple people working. I have a terrific assistant, a terrific personal assistant who's really not just a personal assistant, she's CFO, and she's also, a producer. And we have a terrific web guy, and we've got some other terrific people, but we don't have a giant staff, and so this is where we kind of fall on, it kind of falls to the bottom of the stack. But as we are knocking stuff off the top of the stack, and that's important. So, yes, so there's your answer, Brian. We're gonna get on that. They'll all be on the speaking page, all the existing speeches that we can find, and then we will also keep updating that with updates and so on. So, moving on, Zechariah Tiemans says, will there ever be a live questions edition? In other words, a hot seat edition of the Stratosphere Lounge where the questions come from the comment stream? The answer is yes, Zechariah. There's a lot of lag. If I say something here, I'm going to do a quick little test for you. I'm going to clap my hands, and here's how the show works. As I do the show live, I'm looking at a monitor, a feedback monitor of my face, like a little mirror. It's directly in front of me, and in a little window off to the side, I see what's coming back to me through the web. So I see what's going out, and then I see after it goes up to the Ustream server and gets encoded and comes back down again, I see me with a lag. And let's see if we can measure what this lag is. In fact, let's find out exactly what the lag is, because the lag is always here. And I'll explain why that's a problem in a minute. So let's get out our happy dandy stopwatch here on our iPhone. Ready? And I'm going to go ready, set. And when I start, I'm going to snap my fingers. And when I start, I'm going to start the clock. And the second I see it, which would be the second you see it, because right now I'm about 6 seconds ahead of you in time, something like that. The second I see what you see, I'll hit the stop button. Ready, set, go. Okay, it's longer than that. There's 7. Still haven't seen it. Oh boy, it's much, much longer. Much longer. Oh boy, it's got to be closer to 30-second lag, I'm guessing here. So this is exciting theater, isn't it? Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go. I can see it I'm holding it up. I'm holding it up. And it is... Come on, Billy. This is shocking. I had no idea it was this long, actually. Hang on, almost there. Silly, huh? And... doom. 42 seconds. 42 seconds of lag. So, what that means is, if I say, let's look at the comment stream, I can look at a comment that I've just finished talking about, but I can't take one in real time. And they scroll down pretty fast. That sets up a problem. And one of the things we're going to try and do is set up, we might be able to do it with text. We might be able to do it with face. I don't know. But it's a lot of lag. And that presents a problem because I can't really deal with things in real time as they are. With that said, I don't think it's going to be impossible to do. In fact, maybe we can make it next week. We can just do one where we basically say the only questions we're going to take are going to be in the comment section. We have a very small group in the comment section, really. There's not a whole lot of people who are commenting. And I think it's fun if you sign up for the social stream stuff. But yeah, it's a 40-second lag. So in answer to your question, Zechariah, we will do it live, and we'll do it from the comment stream. Maybe we'll do it next week. I'm always looking for something fun to do. And by the way, I have not forgotten the one-question edition of the Stratosphere Lounge thing. I haven't forgotten that. We'll get to that. So there you go. Moving on, Pat Bigo says, should conservatives give up the fight on social issues and just advocate fiscal conservatism? This is a very interesting question. It's kind of the question. Look, without evangelicals, we don't win elections. And a lot of them sat out the last 2 elections. A lot of people sat out the last 2 elections. So I'm going to answer your question in 2 ways, because it really is 2 issues. When you say, should conservatives give up the fight on social issues? My answer is no. Should not give up the fight on social issues. Should we just advocate fiscal conservatism as a party? My answer there is essentially yes. So what I'm saying is this. I'm not one of those people that say that, I wish these people would just stop talking about abortion and gay marriage. It's like, what do you mean? They have a perfect right to talk about abortion and gay marriage. These things bother people. They bother a lot of people. You can't tell them that they just should not be concerned about it and get over it. And likewise, there are some conservatives who say, you should stop listening to the libertarians. It's all about, you're drifting off into this idea that that the republic can survive without a moral code and without a religious code, and that's a sound argument. In many ways, it's a sound argument. So I think what we have to ask ourselves is, we have to say to ourselves, why can't we? What do we want to do, and what is our really? When we say what do we want to do, it can't be about what do we want to do in order to win elections, although that'd be nice for a change. The real question is, what do we actually believe together? What is the core that we can all believe together? So if you think about it, I've heard this before, I don't know if P.G. O'Rourke said this, but if you think about it, every single person in the country ultimately is a party of one. There's not another American out there who agrees with me on 100% of the things I agree with. Nobody agrees with you on 100%. 100%. You can get a lot of agreement. But really, no 2 people think exactly the same thing about anything. And by the way, just so you know, the one pet peeve of mine in this line of work, I can take it from liberals, I can take all this other stuff. The only thing in this line of work that actually drives me batty and makes me angry is when I hear something where somebody will say to me, Bill, I've been a fan of yours for 8 years, but you said something about My Little Pony, and I can't listen to you anymore. Goodbye, I'm never going to listen to you again. It doesn't have to be My Little Pony. It was your stance on gay marriage, or it was your stance on this, or I've been such a fan of yours forever and have been following you forever and really thought you were terrific. And then I heard you say this, which I disagree with, and therefore our relationship is terminated. I say terminate away. Would you like me to unfriend you, or do you want to do it yourself? That is so childish. It's so petty, and it's so unfair. It's so unfair. It's not just unfair to me. It's unfair to anybody to think that because you agree with somebody on most things that you have to agree with them on anything. It's not how things work. It's not how the country works. It's not how life works. So the question comes down to, what can we all agree on together? What is the smallest raft that we can all fit on? And I think what I would say to that is, fiscal conservatism is the one thing that unites conservatives and libertarians. Shrinking the government and being left alone is an even easier sell. So, if you can't sell personal freedom and private property and lowering taxes, you don't deserve to be in this business. Now, to the social conservatives, I would say this. I'm not saying that we should not worry about these issues, and I'm not even saying that they're not important. I'm not even saying they're not the key issues. But I think what I am saying is, if I understand if I know a lot of social conservatives, and I'm socially conservative in a lot of ways, but I think if I understand the argument that Christians are making about Christianity, about people in general, I want to ask, is that not in fact the entire point of Christianity, is that it is not legislatable? Isn't that kind of the entire point, that law does not protect the human heart against sin? Isn't that everything that Christianity is? Isn't that it in a nutshell, in fact? Isn't that why Christ came to earth, was to save us from law? The law, the religious law, save us from the idea that if we do everything right, then we'll do everything right, therefore we'll be saved. Isn't it understanding that everybody's flawed, everybody sins, everybody makes mistakes, and so to legislate them into the appearance of virtue is not virtue at all. So if that's the case, it certainly seems to be what Christianity is to me. Aren't you, forget about causing us to win or lose elections, isn't that basically negating the essence of Christianity by trying to force people to do the right thing legally? I don't know. But I will say this. When the question is, should social conservatives give up on the fight on social issues, the answer to me is an absolute, unmitigated no. They should not give up to it at all. Should not give up at all. But I don't know if the political world is the place to take that fight. I think the place to take that fight is out into the streets, to take it out into the society in a bunch of different ways and make it personal. Because a personalized message is the message that sells. To the degree that I'm successful, it's because I put my personality into this work. And so I just think that's the way to win. I think if you want to win the abortion fight, is not to tell people you will be prevented from having abortions, although God knows the second, especially third trimester abortions are just unbelievable. But I think the way to win abortions is to show people sonograms and to show them this is it, and to say there is an alternative to this, by the way. There is an alternative to what you're about to do. But you can't legislate those people into doing the right thing. They're going to do it in back alleys. You cannot legislate people into behaving themselves. This is the essence of democracy. It's the essence of Christianity, in my opinion. You have an obligation, I believe, to promote and to preach in the best possible way, to say this is a moral standard that I try my failed best to adhere to. Here's why I think it works for me. You have an obligation to preach the message as you understand it. But I don't think you have either the obligation or even the right to make people do it. Isn't that essentially what Islam is? I mean, isn't that why Islam is a religion that's descended from the slave child, and Christianity, Judaism is descended from the free child? Isn't the idea of taking all potential temptation in the forms of covering women up in sacks and no drinking and no gambling, no nothing? It doesn't exist, and if we see it, we're going to execute it. We're going to stone it to death. Therefore, nobody will sin. And these are the most evil, sinful people on the planet, these Sharia sons of bitches. They're the most evil, brutal, sinful people I know of. They're subject to the rule of the law of Islam. Does that make them good people? No. You cannot legislate people into virtue. You have to pray for them into virtue, and you have to be an example, a personal example for them into virtue. And that's the only way that's going to happen. So I think the solution is to say, let's agree on what we can agree on in terms of government. Don't we believe that government should be out of our lives in all areas, that it doesn't absolutely need to be there? How can we say that we believe in limited government and we believe in getting the government out of everything except for things like defense and building the roads? How can we say that and then say, oh, and by the way, you're going to do these things that we think are important in the bedroom? That people hear me say that, they go, so you're saying that you're in favor of abortion? Of course I'm not. You're saying we should let these children be murdered? No. But the way to fight that is not through legislation. The way to fight it is through example and through love and through engagement. And we don't engage people. We just don't. We don't. And when you look at where all these abortions occur, for example, they occur primarily in the cities where there are no support structures, there are no churches, there are no alternatives, there are no people who don't have families, there are no extended families. And so what you need to do, I think, is lead by an example. Isn't that what Christ did? I mean, isn't that it? Christ didn't say, throw the prostitutes in jail. He hung out with them, and he hung out with the lepers, and he hung out with the sick and the lowly. And he hung out with them and converted them personally. And so, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing the point here. But I think social conservatism is the essence of recovering the country. If we do not recover personal virtue, we don't deserve to be free, and we won't be. But you can't force people into virtue, and the more you try, the more unvirtuous they become. That seems self-evident to me. Anyway, that's what would happen if you had a guy who could explain some principles. Moving on, Chris Bailey says, I was diagnosed with a debilitating disease just after 9/11, and because of that I was unable to fulfill my lifelong dream of becoming a Marine. I know you went through a similar circumstance when you weren't able to become a fighter pilot in the Air Force. He wrote pilot, but I could have become a pilot in the Air Force. I just couldn't become a fighter pilot in the Air Force. Did you... Actually, that's not true. Come to think of it, I take that back. I could have been flight crew in the Air Force. I apologize. I could have been a flight crew. But no, not a pilot. Not at that time. Did you feel any regret or sadness, and does that feeling go away? I know my wife and children have given me a new purpose. What would be your advice to people that can't pursue their life's dream because of circumstances? That is a fantastic question, Chris. That's one of the best questions I've ever had. Do you feel any sadness or regret, and does that feeling ever go away? No, it never does go away. But it gets a lot easier to bear. It's like any other wound or hurt. Time heals all wounds. It doesn't sting anymore, and it stopped stinging quite a long time ago. But it still itches, Chris. Still itches. I'll meet a guy, meet him all the time. Some guys, hey, I real fan of your stuff. Oh, thank you very much it's very kind of. What do you do? I'm a pilot. What do you fly? I fly F-15s. Oh, yeah, I flew F-4s in Vietnam, or yeah, I'm a Viper pilot, or Oh, and when I'm at I occasionally get down to Tucson, and when I'm in Tucson, the Arizona National Guard, Air National Guard there operates a lot of F-16s out of Tucson. And I sit there waiting for my 737 so I can go home, and I see these dark gray darts coming into land, and I see them taxiing, and I think, man, that should have been me. One time I flew into Tucson in my little Sky Arrow, and I was coming straight in for the parallel runway on the right, which is a much smaller runway. And I got a call out from the tower saying 384 Sierra Alpha, traffic is at your 3 o'clock, moving to 4 o'clock, moving to, you know what, don't worry about it. And I said, traffic where now? And I start looking over my left shoulder. And I'm flying an airplane, it's got a stick on the right, a throttle on the left, propellers behind me so I don't have to see it. I got a canopy, and I got as close as I can get right now. And I look off to my left, and these two F-16s were just in a real tight 3 or 4G turn, and they were just rolling right in on me. And as I saw them come around, I'm just looking at the bottom of the airplane, and the gear pops out, and they roll down, and they land in front of me, and I thought, you bastards, bring it on. But, you know, here's your answer, Chris. I didn't get to fly the F-16. That's what I wanted to fly more than anything. Some of our guys here, we have a guy who's a regular Stratosphere Lounge guy. We'll see him any second. He'll show up, a Viper pilot. He flies the real F-16s. But if you go to a site called Bearcoot 13, you'll see a guy who has built his own little F-16. It's piston-powered, but it's blindingly fast, and that's pretty damn close, Chris. And one day I'd like to own a Viper jet. Do I have a picture of it up here? I don't. But it's a two-seat airplane, and it's like a little fighter, and it's usually painted gold, but if I had one, and they're about 500 grand, so subscribe. If I had one, I wouldn't paint it gold. I'd paint it in military colors. I'd paint it like Air Force gray, and I'd put the numbers on it, and I'd make it look like it's some kind of super tiny little kind of reconnaissance jet. There he is, Viper check. Damn you. And I would do the best I can. So it's not all sad either, though, Chris. Here's the thing that's really important about all this. You have to really isolate what it is about what you want. And if you can't get what you want out of where you wanted it, you have to go shopping for the things that you wanted from it. And you got to go to market and go buy those things somewhere else. So why did I want to fly jets for the Air Force? First of all, I wanted to fly high-performance airplanes. The airplane I own is a $60,000 airplane. Now, an airplane hobby is a pretty expensive hobby as far as hobbies go. It's a lot more expensive than, car hobby, generally speaking. But, that kind of thing is within the reach of somebody who dedicates their life to working hard. That's an expensive car. That's not a house. So that's within reach of just about anybody. So I like to fly. And I fly a little airplane, and it's not nearly as fast, but it's a very cool airplane, and it's really, really fun. And so I get to fly, and so I get 60, 70% of what I wanted out of flying fighter jets, I get from flying my own airplane. And I'd like to move it up. If I get the Viper jet, I'll have 90% of what I wanted. What else did I want to do? I wanted to defend this country. I wanted to fight for this country. That's what I do for a living now. You guys pay me to do that. So thank you for giving me that back. And what else did I want to do? I wanted, of all the things I think I wanted in the military, I think I wanted the sense of camaraderie. I especially wanted to be shot at. And I wanted to be in the group of other guys who were shot at the same time. That's not something I'm going to get. But if I wanted that badly enough, I could get that too. I could become a policeman. I could become a border patrol agent, something like that. So when you say you wanted to be a Marine, and because of an illness you were denied becoming a Marine, you have to accept the fact that you're not going to become a Marine. Sounds like you've done that. You say you got a family. Good for you. That's more important than being a Marine. So now you have to ask yourself, Chris, what was it about being a Marine that you wanted? I'm going to speculate here. I don't mean to put words in your mouth. I'm just going to speculate. Part of it was you wanted to defend your country. There are a lot of ways you can defend your country. Lots of ways. You can defend the people of this country by doing any number of things. If you want to become an intelligence analyst, you could do that. You work for the CIA. If you want to defend this country in other ways, there's any number of ways you can do it. You can defend the citizens of a city as a sheriff, as a sheriff's deputy. If your primary motivation for becoming a Marine was protecting people, you have the means to do that. I'm sure you do. If you wanted to be a Marine because you like to fire weapons, you can go out and own a weapon. Go buy, if you don't have one already, save your money, work hard, save your money, go buy an AR-15 and go out and shoot it and have fun with it. And maybe paintball, because paintball's fun. And I know this sounds trivial, but it's really not. And then the final thing I'll say is, no, you're never going to get over it. But what you will find, I think, is if you listen to your heart, and you already sound to me like you are, you will find, now this you can count on, buddy. If you ask me, do I regret not being a fighter pilot in the Air Force? The answer is yes, I do. Very much. But if you were to ask me the actual question that you're probably asking me, would I rather have been a fighter pilot in the Air Force? And the answer is no. I'm right where I need to be. I'm doing the one thing in the world I'm best at. I would have been a great fighter pilot. I know this for a fact. I had a guy named Amish took me down to Miramar, and he put me in the F-18 simulator with all the realism set up to full. And I hit, I hit the tanker on the first try, and I flew formation on the first try. They wouldn't let me run the weapons, the missiles, because I guess it's a security issue, which is hilarious because I've been firing missiles at MiGs for 30 years now on PC flight sims. But I shot down, I said, I want your best settings. I don't care if I fail. I want to fail, but I want to fail realistically. So I shot down their best pilots with guns 6 times in the F-18 simulator they used to train actual F-18 pilots. And then, of course, the ultimate thing is, what about the carrier landings? Well, they put me 8 miles in trail from the Nimitz, and I said, I don't want any help. I know what I'm doing intellectually, and I'm a good stick. And I've done this on PCs hundreds of times. Can I do it in the real sim? And I started flying an angle of attack approach, which I've never done in the real world before, but I knew how to do from the PC sims. And I'm flying the angle of attack, and I know where I'm about supposed to be, so I'm in the F-18 sim with the full realism up, and I hit the deck, and the second I hit the deck, the one thing I knew I had to do was instantly you feel those wheels contact full afterburner, because if it turns out you missed that wire, and you wait to find out, did I catch the wire? You're in the ocean. So assume you missed the wire. So I hit the deck, full afterburners. Plane didn't crash, didn't break the airplane, didn't break the boat. Round we go. I said, okay, that's a bolter. So we went around again, put me in position the second time. I was high. I was too high. I didn't catch the wires. Second time, I was lower, but I missed the wires the second time. It was a second bolter. But I haven't crashed the plane yet, and I haven't got in the ocean, and I haven't broken the boat. So I go around for a third pass, and this time I'm coming a little lower, and I think, man, I'd rather do bolters all day and keep going long than come in short and hit the back end of hit the fantail of this carrier. Is going to be a bad day for me and bad day for the carrier. So on the third approach, I came down and I hit the deck and I put in full afterburners, and suddenly the plane comes to a stop. And then I remembered something that a guy who's the air boss, the guy who's controlling the jets, actually said once. Some new guy was practicing his landings. He made 7 or 8 or 9 attempts to get on the thing, and he was running out of fuel, and he refueled once. He's still running out of fuel. The kid was so stressed out that he finally caught the wire, and he's sitting there on the wire at full tension in a fighter jet. I guess it was during Vietnam, and he's got both of his engines on full afterburners, and it's just staying just on full. Kid's so freaked out about having landed, he forgot to come back on the throttles, and the air boss looked down at him and got on the radio and said, okay, son, you can come back on the throttles now. You're not going to make the boat go any faster. So once I knew I was stopped, I came back on the throttles, and the instructor pilot said, well, he hit the 4th wire. You want to hit the 3rd wire. That's the ideal. Hit the 4th wire. But he turned to my friend who I was with, they were both in the control room, and he turned to her and he said, well, that son of a bitch just hit the 3rd wire on his 4th wire on his 3rd try. By coincidence, when I first did this out in the real world, I also hit the 4th wire on my 3rd try, but I'd had 400 or 500 hours of instruction in F-18 at the time, and he's in Eddie. So I was very damn happy about that. That was about one of the high points in my life. So you'll have those opportunities too, Chris, and you're going to find out that you're going to be where you need to be. Don't you worry about that. You're going to be where you need to be, and one day, maybe for the rest of your life, every day, but certainly one day, all of the reasons you wanted to be a Marine are going to come to focus for you, and that desire will cause you to do things and learn things to chase that dream. You've already done a lot of it, and you're going to continue to do a lot of it. One day, those desires and those skills that you've learned pursuing those desires are going to come in very valuable, and they're going to save somebody's life. I'm as sure of this as I am of gravity. Mark my words. So don't give up. You're going to always regret it, but you're going to find that if you'd gotten what you wanted, you would have been disappointed. I do probably another one, maybe two. Let's just get this out of the way. Bo Monday says, when can we look forward to the daily commentaries on the site? I'm going to try and have a new one up tomorrow. If not by Friday, then by Monday, we will be seeing daily updates on the site. I promised we'd have them. We're still in kind of it's not exactly beta, but we're just getting out of the launch phase and into the maintenance phase. And bless YouTube, Facebook, because now Facebook you can time your releases. I did that today for the Stratosphere Lounge, and I did it yesterday for the commentary thing. I got done at night, and I posted it at 5 o'clock in the morning. That is awesome. So very soon, next week, beginning of next week, if not this week. That's really important to me. I wanted to get that out. Excuse me. Here's the last two I'll take. Another technical site issue thing, but it's also something I want to address, especially to this crowd. Zechariah Tiemans again says, now that the Stratosphere Lounge is a channel on BillWhittle.com, will we be seeing the question listed and time-stamped in the description consistently? Yes, I think we've got somebody who will be doing that. That's certainly not something I can do. I don't have anything like the time for that. What he means by that is that all of our archives of Stratosphere Lounge shows, I try to include the questions. And one of the reasons why I'm holding on to 4 or 5 of them is I just haven't had the chance to put those questions in there. It's a little harder than it looks, actually. So we try to include the questions at the bottom of the Stratosphere Lounge, but the way to really have the Stratosphere Lounge set up would be to have each show have, 4 minutes and 13 seconds. Hey Bill, why are you so awesome? And then at 7 minutes and 29 seconds, Bill, how did you get to be this handsome? And then at 9 minutes and 48 seconds, Bill, you're astonishingly, magnificently, eloquently guy, and this kind of thing. So what we'll do is we're going to try and do that. Going to try and have it time stamped. And once we have it time stamped, and once we have a little time on our hands, because I've been working every single day for 3 months now, every single day, and I haven't had a day off. Today wasn't a day off. Today was the first day I didn't have to do anything else. Then what I think we can do is we can go back and look at key moments, and then rather than having to have people sit through 90 minutes of this thing, I'll probably just boil out here's a 7-minute awesome piece of Stratosphere Lounge number 26, and I go off on this rant. So that's coming, Zechariah, and we'll get on that as fast as we can. That's probably not immediate term, but hopefully next week after at the latest, something like that. Okay, and I think this will be the final one for the night. Where'd it go? Yeah, Zechariah Tiemans again. This is a really great question. If being a frontier people is so key to the American spirit, could America happen again on planet Earth? I think that's why I said Antarctica or Alaska. You do need the frontier. You need hardship for this kind of society. You need hardship because if there's hardship, you don't have slackers. If you have hardship, you have people who may not be able to do one kind of job, but if there's hardship, they'll have to do some other kind of job. If you have hardship, everybody gets skin in the game where there's hardship. No one rides for free on the frontier. It's just the way it goes. The analogy that I liked so much, I heard Dinesh D'Souza come up with it. I don't know if it's his. I hope to God it's not, because it's so damn good. But it's really terrific. And what he basically said was, imagine that the whole country consisted of 100 people. And let's say that there was a giant wagon. And let's just further say that at any given population, at any given time, let's say that 10% of the population, for whatever reason, is incapable of taking care of themselves. That would be 10% of the population means they're either too old to continue to walk, and they've put in a lifetime of pulling, and so they've earned their rest, certainly, and they're just physically decrepit. They can't do it anymore. And that would also include people who have, birth deformities or chronic illnesses, children, very young. So let's just say, and I think the number's about right, let's just say that at any given time, in our population of 100 people, 10% of them or 10 of them are not capable of walking, and they want to ride in the wagon. That's marvelous. That's appropriate. It's decent. It's civilized. It's humane. It's great. None of these people are laying about. The old people have worked their tails off pulling, and now they not only deserve, they're entitled to, genuinely entitled to be pulled after all the pulling that they've done. The people who were incapacitated in any other way, they didn't ask for this. They contribute in other ways. If they need to ride in the wagon, they need to ride. And young children, very young children, should be able to ride because they're going to be pulling someday. You can't have babies pulling wagons. So that's the starting premise that Dinesh came up with. He says, now what happens though? What happens if a guy who's got blisters, not terribly bad blisters, but he doesn't like pulling. He's like, I got blisters. All right, get in the wagon. And more people get in the wagon. Then what happens if some people decide that they want to get in the wagon, and so what they do is they start faking injuries, and then they get in the wagon. And then what happens if you find out that one guy can gain a lot of power by promising people seats in the wagon? You let me do this, let me give me some money, whatever, I'll get you in the wagon. As more and more people get in the wagon, this is the key point. As more and more people get into the wagon, there are fewer and fewer people pulling the wagon. And when there comes a point where 40% of the people are in the wagon and 60% of the people are pulling in the wagon, it gets very hard to pull the wagon. And somewhere around 50% or so, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, it begins to dawn on the people doing the pulling that they're chumps for pulling the wagon. Because the people that they're pulling now are not sick, and they're not aged, and they're not handicapped in any way. They're just lazy. And as more and more people stop pulling and get in the wagon, it becomes stupider and stupider and stupider. It becomes a logical, rational choice to stop pulling and get in the wagon. Then what happens is when you have 90 people in the wagon and 10 people pulling, the strongest people, the best people, the most honorable people are still pulling, comes a point when if it's 80-20 and 80 in the wagon, 20 pulling, then the 20 people saying, you know what, screw you. You can have your damn wagon. We're going to go someplace else. And then what happens? Then nobody pulls the wagon. And who hurts the most when this happens? The 10% of the people who really needed it. They're the ones who hurt the most. That's where we are right now. We are at the place where everybody is entitled to everything. Nobody understands that somebody's paying for it. So, why not get in the wagon? It's the smart play to get in the wagon. When that happens, the game's all over. It's the same way of saying that once people begin to realize that you can vote yourself other people's money out of the treasury, then the game's up. So there you go. You can't do that on a frontier. On a frontier, everybody has to do something. It may not be everybody's out there roping calves, but everybody has to do something. And so where are there frontiers on planet Earth? If there was a frontier on planet Earth, I'd go there. If it were Antarctica, I keep coming back to Antarctica, but I come back to Antarctica because Antarctica is not for the weak. And by the way, when I say not for the weak, I don't mean weak in body. I mean it's not for the weak in spirit. You can have completely sickly, decrepit, aged people in Antarctica. As long as everybody's pulling their weight, we can afford to take care of the people who genuinely cannot. But old people still can do things. They can dice carrots. I don't mean to be dismissive, but there's any number of things that people can do. There's any number of people who don't have use of their legs that they can do. Anybody can do something. And when you're on a frontier, everybody has to do something because you don't have this stockpile of excess wealth and danger is all around you. And so you have to come to people's aid. You don't have to like them, but you have to come to their aid because if you don't, they won't come to your aid. There's no safety net. One of the most wonderful little lines I've ever heard, my favorite political writer ever utter, was P.G. O'Rourke in my favorite book called Eat the Rich. It's the best book on economics I ever read. In Eat the Rich, P.G. O'Rourke is talking about the miracle of Hong Kong, where a country that had essentially zero safety net, zero resources, managed to have the highest GDP on the planet. And PJ turned a little phrase. He said, because the Chinese in Hong Kong didn't have a safety net, it was important that they keep a hand on the trapeze. And that's what they did. They didn't have a safety net, so they had to keep their hands on the trapeze. And that's what it comes down to, Zechariah, It's not a safety net anymore. It's a safety hammock. And everybody lies in it. And more people get in the wagon. Fewer and fewer people push. That's why when we do stories like this, we're talking about going a place where failure is not an option. Because if you leave a door open by accident, you die and probably everybody else dies too. So, the frontier is the essence of our values. You gotta keep the frontier with you somehow. And the final thing I'll say about the frontier is, as long as there was a frontier, there was a place for the people who were risk takers and who were unwilling to submit to other people running their lives. There's a place for them to go. We don't have a place to go now. If there was a place like that, I'd be there. Every place in the world is settled now. Where are you going to go? People say, Honduras? Come on. You really want to live in Honduras in the jungle? There is the Honduran government, and if the Honduran government decides to take, they don't like you, then you're done. There's no place free and left alone on the earth, because if there's a place where you could be left alone on the earth, I'd be there now. And so would you, likely. So we have to recover this one, and I like this one. North America is the most beautiful place on the planet. New Zealand is lovely. Wouldn't take, but, a couple hundred of us to take New Zealand, because none of them have guns down there, Just something to think about. That's all I'm saying. I didn't say it. You didn't hear it here. It's not something I actually said. So, no, don't worry about it, New Zealand. We're just joking. We're just kidding around. Nothing really. Not saying anything. It's just a joke. Of course it's a joke. I always joke like this. But seriously, we could probably take New Zealand with 100, 200 guys with ARs and an airplane or two. Just something to think about. Okay. And that's going to do it for the Stratosphere Lounge this evening. What did I do? Did I fog it, or did I put all kinds of horrible greasy oils on it? I bet I did B. Hang on a moment. Let's improve our. Ta-da! Microfiber rules. That's all we have time for today, ladies and gentlemen. This has been your Stratosphere Lounge, episode number 43. As always, thank you for everything. Thank you for your support over the years. Those of you who've become subscribers to BillWhittle.com, thank you very much for that. And we're going to start seeing that as a real going enterprise, really pretty much immediately. I actually, for the first time in a long time, look forward to getting to bed early and getting up early, because there's a lot of stuff I want to do on the website that day. So there it is. We're still in the end phase of building the thing. Once we get to put all of our energies into maintaining and updating it, then it'll start to be humming. So I think by next week we should be in routine mode. As always, you can leave your questions on Facebook. As always, thank you for this magnificent life that I've come to enjoy, and I can't recommend it highly enough to all of you. Find a way to make your work what you love, and you'll never work again. So we'll see you on the Facebook page in between now and then, and we will see you at the movies. We'll see you out there in the world, out in the fight. We'll beat these swine yet, don't you worry. If they didn't have to climb such a high, impossible hill of reality, I'd be worried, but they do, so I'm not. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.